All right, video 3. This is going to be our introduction to angles. You probably haven't dealt much with angles in the past, so we're going to really take a step back and go back over the basics here, how to label them, what they are, what they look like, and just some helpful things for you later on this year. We're going to be dealing a lot with segments and angles. That's why we spend so much time. That's why we have these videos set up for you guys. You can always go back and look at them for when things get a little bit more confusing in the future. So 3 things we need to know by the end of this video is we need to be able to classify an angle given a picture or measurement, label and name an angle, and define and label an angle bisector. Angle bisector is going to be covered a little bit more in the next one. The real big key here is to be able to label and name an angle, show where it is, right, and classify it based on the different things. So first thing we have is a line. We talked about that in the last video. All right, as an infinite set of points that extends forever in 2 directions. We got an arrow on both sides. Array, our next vocabulary word, is an infinite set of points that extends forever in 1 direction from a starting point. So we had one of those in the last video, but kind of looks like this. It's only got an arrow on one side. All right, we don't do too much with these types. They're not really measuring. But when we put them together, when we put 2 rays together, or we put 2 line segments together, we create angles. That's going to be the big point in this video here. So an angle, the geometric object created by 2 rays with a common starting point. So if we have a ray down here, with an arrow on one side, this would kind of be first ray. If we have a second ray going in this direction, okay, this being the common point, okay? This is that common point that it's referring to. What this is actually called, the common starting point, the word you will hear a lot this year, it is the vertex, right? The angle that we are actually measuring, what has the number with it, it is the distance between the 2 rays. This is actually the measurement that we are talking about. Okay, this is actually the angle measurement. All right, and for the most part this year, it will be measured in degrees. So it is the distance in the opening. It is how spread apart are these 2 rays. All right, that's what an angle really is. Now, we can classify angles based on how open they are, how far apart these 2 rays are. They have some different names. All right, so these are the 4 that we're really going to focus on. So an acute angle, the opening is going to be less than 90 degrees. So it would look something like this. All right, our obtuse angle is going to be between 90 and 180. So that would look something like this. It is bigger than 90 degrees, but it is not as far as a straight line. Our right angle is exactly 90 degrees. And since our pictures aren't always perfect, usually what you'll see if the question wants it to be a 90-degree angle, is there will be a little box right here that usually tells us that something is 90 degrees. All right, and a straight angle is 180 degrees. We will use this a lot in the future videos, but what that basically means is if this is the starting point, you have 1 ray going this way and 1 ray going this way. And again, the distance between them here is 180 degrees. The distance between these 2 is 90 degrees. The distance between these has to be between 90 and 180, and the distance between these has to be less than 90 degrees. All right, so those are the 4 different ways that we can classify these angles. But the most important thing I think of this video is how we label them, how we name them, and what they're called. So we know how to label a line segment. We talked about a line segment being 2 letters. So I'm going to draw an angle, and we're going to talk about the different ways that we can label it. So let's say we have this angle here, right? It is angle A, B, C. There are three main ways that we can label this angle, all right? The first way, and that if we are labeling this, it is talking about this part of the angle. The first way, okay, is with three letters. We can call it angle A, B, C. Now, the key thing when you are labeling angles with three letters is that the middle letter here is always, all right, is always going to be the vertex. This middle letter is always the vertex. All right. We can also label it as angle CBA. It does not matter the order of the letters as long as the vertex is in the middle. All right. The second way that we can label this angle is with the vertex. This is not so much of a common one, but we will see it. It is angle B. Okay, we can just call it by its vertex letter. Angle B would also label this angle. And then the last, third and final way, which is my favorite, as we get later on in the year, we get some complicated diagrams. So what I usually like to do is I put like a number in here. So we call this a 1, and I would call it angle 1. So when you have a picture with multiple angles, you can label them yourself. You can label them angles 1, angles 2, angle 3, and it just makes things a little bit easier and a little bit neater for you. But the most important thing is that in a diagram, you can, excuse me, label and find the angles that we are working with. All right, I have two examples for us to go over. I'm going to try to highlight these things for you to make it make a little bit of sense. Usually it helps when we get to the example problems, that connection there. All right, so here we go with our first example. There are a couple different angles over here, and it's going to be very important that we read and label correctly. So here we have angle ABD is 78 degrees. So if I'm looking at this diagram here, point A, point B, and point D make up that angle. So what I know is that in between these two lines, this opening is 78 degrees. All right, so I'm going to label that. That's going to help us get set up for the next piece here. So now the next one is angle DBC. So again, D, B, and C. Okay, so again, this opening here is now going to be 46 degrees. So those are the two angles that they talked about. Those are the ones that we know the values of. Now, it's very similar to segment addition, okay? We have, what is the value of ABC? Well, now, ABC is going to be this entire opening, all right? So we have to do a little math here. We have to do a little addition. So we're going to have to do 78 plus 46 in order for us to get that final answer. So this angle is 124 degrees. This is also something it would make it in obtuse angles. It's greater than 90 degrees. Again, the important thing here is that you can label that information on the diagram. That will help you figure out what you need to do. All right, so that's it for example 1. Example 2, a little bit more complicated, a couple more angles. You notice as we go through these videos, the examples are going to get more and more challenging. Again, the key here is going through this information and labeling what you have. So angle WXY. So WXY is actually this entire thing. So I would label this way on the outside here so I don't confuse it with anything else. It's going to be 162 degrees. We then have V, X, and W. So V, X, and W, this is going to be 60 degrees. And then the last thing that's going to be a little new, so we're going to talk about it now. We have VXZ and ZXY being congruent. So VXZ being this angle, and I'll do the other one in another color here, ZXY being this angle. So what we know is we know that they are the same measurement. These guys here are the same value. All right. What I like to do to mark them the same is I usually put a little line here, just like we did with our segments. It makes things a little bit easier to visualize. And what we're going to do here is if we know that these are the same, right, what we can do, the whole thing is 162. What I'm going to do is subtract the 60. So I would do 162 minus 60, and then I would get 102. And now again, what that means is these two make up 102 degrees. So if they make up 102 degrees together and they have to be the same, you just divide them by 2, and we get 51 degrees each. Okay. Now, if that wasn't complicated enough, we have one more wrinkle in this question. We are not actually looking for that 51 degrees that these two angles are. We are looking for the angle WXZ. So now, I'm going to try to find a different color here so we can go over everything, but I'll do it maybe with this highlighter here, this yellow highlighter. WXZ. Well, where's WXZ? W, X, and Z is this whole thing here. So if I'm looking for this opening, I'm going to add together this 60 and this 51. All right, and that's going to make, let's see, 60 plus 51 is going to make 111 degrees for WXZ. Right? That question's a little complicated. It gets very, very confusing with all the different lines. What's important is that you can label this information on here and you can organize it yourself and draw on these pictures in a way that helps you. We'll have some trace paper. We'll have some other things that you can use in class to help you. All right, but this is where we end this video. And again, we have these practice questions in your other packet to get at. So once you guys start working on these, you can work with a partner. If you have any questions, you come up and see me. And if not, we'll get into some more vocabulary words for video 4. See you guys there.